Hi there, welcome to Dose of Unity. I'm Diane.
Capriana.
And so today we're actually talking about a little bit heavier subject, mental health and addiction. And this is taken from all the different work that we've done over the last few years, learning about all different angles of mental health and how it can lead to addiction. We do want to mention that we're not experts. So we are here just to kind of have a conversation and have people consider this information a little bit differently than they might have before, or help them to understand, what to do in certain circumstances.
Yeah. So why are we talking about this? What does it mean for Unity, and how is it tied to the whole concept that we're working with here? I see it twofold. We can't be united if we're in a mental space that doesn't allow us to achieve unity. And it does take work. It takes focus. It takes mental and emotional and physical clarity. So if you're in the depths of a really bad mental struggle or in the throes of addiction, it's going to be really difficult for you to do that hard work to really get into the unification space. And that's your journey. And that's something that we love to see people helping other people working through. And also from a different angle, these major issues give us all something to unite over, to band together, to help one another get over their problems. These issues are pervasive in society right now. We hear about it. The addiction crisis is just skyrocketing and continuing to skyrocket. And the same thing with mental health. I think that we've really gotten to a point in society where we need to intervene. We need to come together, and we really need to intervene on ourselves.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, exactly. It's just like the statistics that you pulled up in terms of since COVID.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. So just to cite the statistic, and we'll put all of the citations in whatever caption or anywhere that we need to. But according to the World Health Organization, there's been a 13% increase in mental health conditions and substance use disorders in the last decade. So it's not even just the past couple years alone. That's in the past decade. Around 20% of the world's children and adolescents have a mental health condition, with taking of one's life being the second leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds. Depression and anxiety alone cost the global economy $1 trillion in US dollars each year. Year. So it's huge. And for taking your own life to be the leading cause of death for such a young demographic it should be, frankly, very scary to all of us.
Mm-hmm. It really is. It's something that since we started looking into this too, with our work prior to COVID even hitting, it's tough to be a young person these days, and it's hard for them to find hope. And what we found is that it does touch everyone, whether it is personally themselves or if it's somebody that they care about or love. It's a conversation that we have to have. It used to be kind of taboo to bring it up. And what surprises me too is the folks that I talk to, kind of in my generation, and themselves as well as any of their children. And they would explain how difficult it's been for their child. And so I think that's important. And then also, as you mentioned earlier about coming together on how to get to the root of the issue, it's when you start to dig a little bit deeper of the root of the issue, it is that's when you start to realize, as you mentioned earlier, that we really do need to figure this out collaboratively, because everybody's suffering in some way for the most part. A lot of people are, but particularly people who are vulnerable anyway, it's that much harder for them. So, and then people have different perspectives on this too. I mean, there's the hard approach, there's the gentle approach, and everything in between.
The religious approach.
Yeah. And it's different for every person. Every person is different. Some people, you need them to know that they're not alone and you're there for them, that you believe in them and all that sort of thing. And otherwise, the come on, we're going to get up and we're going to go do this or whatever, the harder approach. But yeah. And then,
and you mentioned earlier how it's been stigmatized, and we've been talking a lot about it in society for the past several years now. So we're really working on breaking down the stigma. And so we need to normalize those conversations. We need to normalize knowing what to look for and how to help and what resources are available, locally for you. Or even, nationally, there's plenty of huge organizations who are trying to tackle these issues. Addiction and mental health are very closely linked. So it's something that we really need to prioritize as well as normalize. Like I said, they go hand in hand. They're people who struggle with mental health issues might struggle because they have a substance use disorder, and vice versa. They might have given themselves a mental health issue by using a certain substance, or just from being in the throes of addiction while being vulnerable and having to deal with homelessness or hunger, or unfortunately a lot of trafficking happens in those spaces too, like we kind of have done work on in the past. Mm-hmm. So I guess my question to you, Diane, because I know you've had probably a lot more hands-on work with these sort of things, where's the hope at? Where can we find that hope? Things feel very divided. This issue is so much bigger than I think so many of us know.
Yeah, it's been a challenge because of, like you said, the divide. And so then people are trying to figure things out on their own. And there's a lot going on in the world that, especially for young people, they're constantly being bombarded with news and difficult situations all the time. And I think that if people realize there has been, since the history of time, things to be concerned and worried about, but unfortunately, because it's in our face all the time, it can be a lot to deal with. I know for me personally, if I'm going through a tough time, my faith is what I hang on to, and that just sustains me and helps me to kind of ride the wave in those situations. But yeah, anything can derail somebody, right? If there's something going on in their life and they get to a point that they're going through difficulty, and then from there it can spiral into the addiction issues. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I think it is important for everybody to acknowledge what is going on in the workplace, at school, different nonprofits, and having a way to connect with the folks and the people that you care about in a way that's going to let them know that they're not alone and give them resources. So we'll get into that a little bit more as we go through here. And I did want to ask you, Capriana, you have a story that you are willing to share. And part of this is also helpful for those listening and watching, for you to know that that we get it, you get it. But do you want to share a little bit about your story?
Yeah, absolutely. As Diane said, this is something that, touches a lot of us, most of us statistically. And I am in that 15 to 29 age range. I am on the older end of it. But yeah, I've struggled my entire life with mental health issues. In my early 20s, I struggled with addiction as well, drugs, alcohol, the whole thing. I was out of control. I was so lost. I felt so hopeless. I was so insecure. I had no idea the damage I was doing to myself. And I kind of just gave up. There are things that I did that, looking back on them, I was mean. I was an absolute bully. And this is from even just being not an adult. This was, going back to whatever, because I had those things done to me. And I have other stories that I'll share that kind of more specifically created this situation. But they're in my loneliest hour when I was in my 20s. And even prior to that, there were so many times that I tried to take my own life. I ended up in the hospital twice, being locked in there. I know a lot of millennials and people who have gone through trauma like to sometimes maybe make a little bit of a joke about their trauma, you got to laugh it off sometimes. So I am a certified part of the Grippy Sock Club, as they say, 2 times over. And laughing just helps me get through it. Yeah. But yeah, the several different physicians that I saw, I was diagnosed early on with PTSD from a situation that happened. Lots of other disorders that have been subsequently piled on, of course, depression, anxiety, those types of things that a vast majority of us struggle with. And sometimes we don't even know we struggle with because we're trying everything we can to cope. But yeah, it took so much work, and it took me staring myself in the mirror one day, and I don't even know how I was able to snap out of it. Honestly, in my personal opinion, I believe it was divine intervention. That's the only way for me to see that it was such a black and white change, literally overnight. Just looking at myself in the mirror and realizing that this is not the person that I want to be, realizing where I was, waking up half the mornings not knowing if my purse was there or where I was last night. There was an instance where I was at, or a couple different instances I was at. I was out with friends at bars. They left me. I had drinks that were, something was put in them. I was given substances, and I didn't care. I had one time I was out with a friend where just this random person walked up to me and said, "Hey, you don't look like you're having fun." And so he handed me this little bag, and I just did it. Didn't know what it was. Didn't care. I was so gone mentally and emotionally, and I was just trying to do anything I could to numb the pain, to not be myself, to not be present in that moment, that I didn't care. I didn't, for all we could have known, it could have been fentanyl. I wouldn't have been here.
Right,
that's something that's happening really to people. So for me to be on this side of things, I feel very blessed. I feel very privileged because there are so many people with a similar story to me who aren't.
Yeah.
So I am very, very close to this issue, and I'm very, very passionate about this issue. Thank God I was able to get out of that. And, I didn't do any permanent damage to my life, myself, my record. And I'm married and I have kids. I have a life that I always dreamed of having, but never thought I could have. So
yeah, and seeing that it's possible, and like you said, getting to the other side. Yeah. Wow, I mean, that's,
and get help.
And get help.
Like, truly, I had to drag myself and claw myself into the therapy room because I didn't trust therapists at that point. I had gone through a million of them, didn't trust any of them, didn't think that they were helpful to me by and large, until I started seeing one who was kind of helping me work through the nastiest of it, and she was awesome. So, well, and that's the thing. Find your fit, but get help.
Find your fit, and I think that's what I hear from people a lot too. Is oh, I tried it didn't work, and they don't want to try it again. And everybody's different. Every therapist is different. Every counselor is different, and you might find the one that can really help a lot. But that's really challenging. And I know you and I have talked a little bit about some of it in the past, and we've talked about the fact that in my case, I've loved people that have gone through this. And I know that's very difficult too, if you're listening to this. And if you have someone that you care about or love, a family member or friend who you're trying to help them and you don't know how to. And it really does come to that person getting to a point that they have to be ready. Like you said.
Oh, absolutely.
And in the meantime, you can continue to offer them resources to do what you can do, and make sure that in the process, you're not getting sucked in so much that it's hurting your own life as well, right? That balance. And I know we'll talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I guess that is a good segue into what you've seen and what you've noticed, and how can things spiral out of control? How do people know that that's happening? And what are some consequences that you've seen happen when, like I was, you're just manic, basically. You're just doing anything you can to maybe maintain, but if you don't, then whatever,
Yeah. As far as how things can spiral, I think, like you said, it starts with getting to a point that you just don't care what happens to you, right? And so if you see somebody or are around somebody that is doing that, checking in with them, and in realizing that you just you reaching out, even if they don't respond, I mean, that's something else to consider. Sometimes people are going through real difficult times. They don't respond to you. don't take it personally. You don't know where they're at. And so continue to just let them know you're there, that you love them, that you care about them. And again, providing them with the resources, offering to take them to the counseling appointment, offering to be with them to make the phone call and things like that helps, because it's overwhelming for them at that stage if they are in such a deep, dark place that they can't get up to make a phone call. But the other thing too, I think you'd mentioned, kind of joked around that as far as, you weren't arrested or anything like that, or, that obviously a lot of very bad things can happen when somebody's under the influence of substances and not know what's going on or what's happening to them. And, you could do something that you wake up the next morning regretting, whether it be, I talked to some people that it's like, you just pray to God you didn't drive and kill somebody, something like that. And I've actually know of a person who woke up to a situation in a drug situation that the person that they were doing drugs with did not make it, and so then they were the ones supplying it. I mean, just the stories that you hear. And I worked as a chaplain for a bit too, so some of these things I've heard through that. But it's I think realizing that you don't want that to happen. You don't want to wake up in jail. You don't want to wake up and realize something really scary had happened, or you have said something that you don't know to your loved one or somebody you care about, and pushing them away, right? Which is normal. But that regret. So sometimes looking at that seriously and realizing the consequences of staying in that place is very detrimental to you and people around you. So sometimes that could be enough to say, okay, I'm going to get some help and this has to change.
And I would encourage you guys to seek out those stories, because it makes it's very different hearing that those stories exist and looking someone in the face who has been in that situation. I remember back in high school, in one of our social issues classes, we went to a local minimum security prison and spoke to a few of the inmates, had some questions for them. And one of the guys, he was like an engineer before, and he had one night of partying and he killed somebody, and now he's in jail. And he was an engineer. He had a great life. He made a very poor decision, and it was one of those situations where, he woke up in jail, was told he killed, I think, 2 people in an accident that he caused. And something I learned from, working in the medical field is most of the time, a lot of the time, the person who is driving drunk makes it through the accident. That's just their bodies go limp because of the alcohol or the substance. So that's something to think about as well, is that you're endangering your own safety, of course, but you have a higher likelihood of making it out. Of course, if it's catastrophic, it's catastrophic. But that's something to think about too. So seek out those stories. I mean, even if it's just YouTube, look these people in the face, listen to their words, truly heed their warnings. And this is going directly to young people as well. You're not indestructible, period. I thought I was. I tried everything to convince myself that I was not indestructible. And God wanted me here. He did. But he snapped me out of that mode pretty quickly, because I'm not indestructible. And I now on this side again, very well could have been any of those people. So
yeah, exactly. Well, and so let's talk a little bit about, again, going back to kind of the signs and when to call 911 versus when to call, like, for yourself, as well as if you're with somebody who is out of control. I'll say that just because sometimes it's kind of what's happening. And I know that that's a question that I've had a lot in the course of my career and the work that I've done too, is what do I do if my friend is completely out of control? And there has been situations where if they have a run-in with the police or with law enforcement, and people that are police, they don't know what they're dealing with a lot of times. If somebody is under the influence of drugs and completely out of control, and and we know all too well what can happen, and they need to try to figure out, again, the friend needs to try to figure out, what do I do? You know, if I call 911, is something bad going to happen to my friend? Or is there another phone number to call? And I know we've researched this too, and there is other information that somebody can kind of guide you and try to help you de-escalate the situation or get your friend to a safe place. But then there are times that you have to call 911 and trying to be that person in between the 911 operator and explain to them the situation so they can explain that to the police when they come, or to whoever's coming to your help, so they understand what's happening. So the police can go in with some knowledge, right? So you can be helping in that way. But do you want to share a little bit more about kind of the signs that people should look for too, is from a more of a mental health perspective?
Yeah, of course, from just to touch on the addiction side as well, of course, we know when to call 911 if someone's actively overdosing, if you're seeing those kinds of symptoms. We did, if you go to doseofunity.com/take action under our addiction page, I believe we have some information on Narcan. If we don't, we'll put it up there right away. That's something that you should educate yourself about as well. It is becoming way more commonly available by prescription, or not. I don't even think it's by prescription. I think you can just kind of go in and ask, or insurance. There's something like that. We'll post that. So of course, addiction crisis, somebody actively overdosing, that is a 911 call immediately. As far mental health can be a little bit more complex because it's different in everyone. Everyone shows signs of kind of being at the end of their rope in different ways. So these are signs specifically for people, again, who are at that point where they're just done, they're going to take their own life. And this is, again, pervasive issue, second leading cause of death in 15 to 29-year-olds. So listen up for sure. So this is according to the National Institutes of Mental Health. So some signs, talking about wanting to die, that's kind of number one. If somebody's actively telling you that they want to die, they're going to die, they want to do it themselves. Significant guilt or shame, somebody who's just past their limit of being able to forgive themselves for something, or is so showing a lot of self-hate to an excessive amount, or being a burden to others. There's lots of people, I know us as a millennial generation, and a lot of you will remember, or will be able to feel this too, is even if somebody makes a mistake around me, or if somebody hits me with their cart, I'm the one that apologizes. If a waiter dumped a plate of spaghetti on my lap, I'd probably apologize and think that it was my fault. No, I must have done something. Oh my God. Yeah. So exactly. But it's somebody who's genuinely in that space of feeling like they just absolutely, there's nobody that wants them here. They are a burden to everybody else. Showing feelings of emptiness, hopelessness, being extremely sad, increasingly anxious, or showing agitation or rage. So we all know a lot, about how anxiety presents. Some people are really, really nervous. Some people are panicky. Some people are sad. Some people are, rage filled. So that's kind of those types of feelings there at an extreme level, and then severe mood swings. And that's not, there's a lot of going around and diagnosing other people with things. People like to throw out, oh, he's bipolar, oh, he's OCD, without having any, those words mean things and it's clinical. So people who aren't clinically diagnosed with something, actively getting treatment, who are exhibiting these signs. Changing behavior. This is a big one too. Changing behavior, such as taking a particular interest in death or researching ways to die, withdrawing from friends, saying goodbye, giving away important items, making a will, taking dangerous risks like driving super fast, eating or sleeping more or less, using drugs or alcohol more often. And a big one that isn't talked about, that is talked about with relation to addiction, is pink clouding, or the pink cloud syndrome. And if you're a fan of Law & Order SVU, like I am, you may have heard of that term from Detective Olivia Benson. But according to the Pink Cloud Foundation, there's an entire foundation based around this. And again, it is closely connected to addiction. But in relation to mental health, so I did write this down. So according to them, pink clouding is a state of mind characterized by sudden joy, euphoria, and overconfidence. So that's, it's connected to the early stages of recovery and sobriety. When people feel like they're in those early days, they're feeling really good, they're doing really well, and then they relapse. So, but in relation to mental health and taking one's own life, it can describe someone who is comforted or relieved by their plan to actually go through with the act. So if you have someone who's been exhibiting all these signs, these changes in behavior, has been doing all these different things, has been kind of manic and all over the place or feeling like they're a burden, and then all of a sudden they feel better, that's a red flag. That's like a huge red flag. And that's an immediate...
Kind of like that. Yeah, the weight is lifted off their shoulders or something. And
they have a plan. They're going to do it. That's an immediate red flag. That person needs immediate help. You need to check on them. And it's better, and they say this in the spaces of trafficking as well, it's better to be paranoid than dead. So it's better to be paranoid and have somebody, crisis person, reach out to this person than have them actually go through with it. So how to get that person help? Obviously, not just the pink clouding situation, but any of these situations, if you're genuinely concerned that somebody is imminently going to take their life, call 911. That is an emergency.
Well check, or beforehand, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, and I think that's the trick is there's sadly a lot of situations where somebody does take their life, and the first thing everybody says is, I wish I would have known, or, then they start thinking back, but it's difficult when that person is, oh, I'm fine, or whatever, again, they're withdrawing, they're doing all of these things. But do you have any advice as far as, what do you do if somebody just keeps denying that they need help?
It's different with everybody. I mean, it's really, really hard. If you have a friend, for example, like I was this person, so I could speak to me. I did have people in my life who were checking in with me. Every single time they checked in with me, I felt like it was pushing me further and further into it because I didn't want to talk about it. I wasn't ready for it. So I think you have to be careful not to be, you have to balance. You have to balance really being concerned about this person and getting them the help that they need with pushing them further into it and maybe further away from you or further away from help. So I would say a case by case basis, but of being there for that person in general and letting them know that you are a safe person to kind of confide in, or if they needed something, if you're comfortable doing that. Of course, we understand that if there's people who are, for example, addiction, you might not want that person to be in your house shooting up heroin, you know what I mean? Like that. So it's case by case basis. Honestly, the best place to start, if you need advice for yourself, even is to talk to the crisis people. So we'll put all this information up. And it's also under, I believe, mental health and addiction. If you go to doseofunity.com /take action, the 988. Call 988.
You can call or even text
or chat online on their website. And they do have, I think they have a quick close. Maybe they don't, but that's a resource for you. It's a suicide, can't say that, unaliving and crisis lifeline that you can call 24/7, 365. It's always there. There's also another crisis text line. And you can just text hello to 741-741. So those are good resources. Of course, you probably have local chapters of various organizations. I know NAMI has some chapters around. Is it SAM? I can never remember that acronym.
Yeah. It's on our information. I know what you mean. That and but there's a lot, and even prior to that, in as far as somebody who's trying to reach out and help their friend or their loved one, even a text to say, hey, I just want you to know I love you. I am here for you at any point, or letting them know when they're ready, to talk. That, like you said, they're a safe person, and just I think that's the thing that stood out to me too is the training I had with this was also reminding them of those in their family that love them, and also kind of putting that person in your shoes. Like if this was, the tables were turned and I was the one who is feeling this way and going through this, imagine if that was the case, if I wasn't here anymore or whatever. And sometimes that helps the person to look at it differently and realize that there is nothing somebody, if you care and love somebody, there's nothing that person could do or not do that's going to ever change how they feel about them, that they want them to be in this world and in their life. And I think that it's also important when we're switching, kind of talking about if you are somebody who's going through mental health challenges, what's important for you to know. And some of the things that have come up that have been helpful for folks are for them to realize that this does not define you. I mean, look at how amazing this woman is here. Thank God. Thank God. Thank God she is here, you know. And you mean, you are a rock star. I always tell you that in so many ways, and it's just such a gift to so many people. And but you know, so that piece is one piece of somebody. And so whether it's their mental health or whether it's addictions, again, that is one piece of the whole picture. We all have our stuff that we go through in life that we might not be proud of. But and then I think too, hopefully that this is something that more and more people know, but you're not alone. You're not alone. There are a lot of people who struggle. And I think that's another thing I've heard is people who finally do share, like you just did. I mean, there's going to be more people that say, wow, I never knew that. I went through the same thing. I struggled too. And then you kind of realize, and I've heard this too, where somebody puts someone up on a pedestal and they think, oh, well, I see myself this way and I'm not as whatever. And they put this person on a pedestal and they realize this person that they thought was on a pedestal is saying, I struggle exactly the same way. You know,
my gosh.
I hear that all the time.
That's, really, really poignant, because I think people who know me, who are watching this and who knew me at that point may not even have known that I was going through that. And I was. I mean, some of them, of course, were heavily involved in what I was doing, but there's a lot of people I knew at that time, including probably my parents. I mean, my parents probably know more than I think they know. They always do. But there's a lot of, it might not look the way you think it's going to look. So yeah, you might feel alone or feel that the person next to you, oh, they have such a perfect life or whatever, but mental health and addiction doesn't have a face.
Oh gosh,
it
does impact everybody.
So yeah, you really truly are not alone, even if you're looking around and you feel that everybody around you is perfect. And I think social media makes that so hard. So we 100% understand. You don't post the negative stuff, right? All the time.
Exactly.
You just post, here, I'm on a boat, look at this. And then
they don't see like right before you did that, the crazy that went on, before and after. But, in the same token, I think there are more people that are being more open about it too, which is really helpful. But again, it's for people who are going through this as well as their loved ones, friends and family, it does really go back to you have to be ready, to help yourself and make a decision to take those steps. And you can believe in yourself. And the other thing, so this is the wisdom that I offer at my age, is once you get to be my age, you really just don't care about what other people think. At least we try, right? But it's like, I think that's a big problem, too. People are afraid to say, okay, this is really how I'm feeling. But if you don't really care what others think and own it, right? And again, you'll realize that more people come forward and say, thank you so much for sharing, because I've been struggling as well. And so, it's all of those things are important to keep in mind. And then the other thing too that we found can be very helpful, and we've talked about this, is trying to have a consistent schedule. If you're somebody who's going through these struggles, so even if it's something that you're only going to work part-time, because you're really in a deep place or dark place, doing something to get out of bed in the morning, to do something, whether it be even volunteering or working or something that is consistent. So consistency, coming up with a consistent schedule. So you kind of know what to do. Okay, just do the next best thing. And, keep taking this step at a time and remembering that this too will pass. I know these are cliche, but it's so true though. These two will pass one day at a time.
That's why they're cliche, because they're true.
They're so true. One step at a time. I've told people 1 hour at a time, and just do for 10 minutes, just do something just to ride that wave, get past and push through that really dark place. And so do you have any other thoughts on if you love someone with mental health challenges as far as how to help them?
Yeah, honestly, I first and foremost believe in them believe that they can overcome those things. I've heard a lot of people, especially some of those people who are the sticklers, the harder kind of whatever, that nobody changes. That's just who they are. They're crazy. They're whatever. No, people have the capacity for change. And if they want to, if they truly, genuinely want to change, because again, we cannot force people. We can't browbeat people into going to therapy or going to recovery, because it's not going to last. So believe in them. Show them that you believe in them. Make sure they know that you're there for them, and that you know that they can change, and that they're a human. They're a human being. Yeah, and like you kind of touched on, just remind them that they are more than what they're struggling with. We are so unique as human beings. We're sentient. We get to have this experience, and that's an experience that we all share. I know we all go through different situations in life, but that is but a part of who they are. That's part of their story. That's part of their journey, and remind them then who they are apart from their mental health. How I see you, like, oh, Diane, you are such a loving, caring, gentle, compassionate human being, and I thank you for being here. Even just that, you don't have to mention their mental health status, or their addiction. Right. Like, I wish you didn't do. No, you didn't. You don't have to do that. Gosh, just true. Remind them who they are. Gosh, you're so smart. Gosh, you're so creative. I love being around you. You're so funny. Just any of these genuine compliments. It's not like we're gonna throw things out that maybe aren't true just to make people feel better, because that really does come off disingenuous. And I can tell you that especially people who struggle with mental health, people who lied to me, I knew it right away, because I didn't feel that way about myself. So if people who know you, people who know the things that make you feel more like you, just be that person for somebody. And then something I thought about, that if you're watching, you saw me type, something that really did help me was positive people in my life bringing me around other positive people. If it's safe to do that. And I will say, if it's safe to do that, because there were some times that if I was manic, it was not safe to do that. But I did have positive people in my life who were willing to not like, let's go get a drink, because they knew that was going to spiral me out of control. It was, let's get some coffee. Let's go have some breakfast. If you're feeling up to it, oh, I'd like to take you let's go to the library, even just like whatever. Go for a walk or whatever. Go sit in the park, whatever it was. And then they'd bring other people around me that were those types of people, and we'd ended up talking. And then what was interesting is, as my friend group kind of evolved and changed, and I was around more positive people, I left my job. That was a job that was highly toxic. I was around a lot of people that, and this is no knock to those people, because I'm still, acquaintances with those people, and they're very good people. It was a bad environment for me personally to be in. It was a way for me to, because of the shift that I work specifically, it was a way for me to excuse some of the bad behaviors that I had. So it was purely a me thing. It was just a toxic environment for me. I learned a lot. I appreciate the time that I spent with so many of those people, and I learned a lot from those people. But I was around people from church. I was around people from outside spaces. So it wasn't connected to those bad behaviors. So I was able to chunk away at disconnecting. So if you're able to, and if it's safe, if you're a positive person and you're, somebody who feels comfortable and confident in really taking this person kind of under your wing and helping them, bring them around your positive people. If you have people who are like you, we have a huge network of people who we know that are unifying spirits, and we love them. And there's plenty of people around the community. There's, different places in your area, rec centers, plenty of places that you can reach out to. I know that's something that's become way more normal now, especially since COVID. People really, really do need that connection. So find those places around you and help guide them to those places. So how can we take care of ourselves in the process of all of this?
Now in this case, are we talking about for the person who loves them, right? Yeah. So the person who cares about the person who's going through the mental health. I think on our notes, I wasn't clear on that.
No, that's okay.
But when you're trying to help somebody you have to be gentle with yourself and not to forget your own self-care when you're trying to, it sometimes can feel like you're trying to save somebody you care about. I had one friend who opened up to me about something really, really dark and deep. And, to your point, she saw me as a positive person that she could talk to, but I tried to bring her into environments that were positive, while also drawing boundaries, so understanding where her temptations might be and things like that. Like you said, coffee is better than going out for drinks or something like that. But, and then just be a little selfish about the different ways that you can be healthy to take care of yourself. That's okay. Just don't be pushing yourself so hard all the time. And because you can't take care of that person you care about or be there for them if you're not there for yourself.
Absolutely.
And then also going to counseling yourself is helpful, because if you go to counseling, they can frame what your friend or loved one is going through a little bit better, so you can help. I've heard stories where some people really are taking that hard approach, and they're doing it all wrong, or snap out of it, or not validating or understanding that person is struggling because they don't understand it. But then talking to others, too, that have gone through loving somebody with a mental health or addiction challenge. Al-Anon is a resource that is out there all over the place. And and again, that faith is something that we have in common. It's amazing to me how many people of faith or faith environments are so open-hearted and open-armed about bringing people in that have struggled. I know that stereotypically, some of these Christians out there that are wagging their finger.
And some do.
But
that's, again, find your fit. Don't generalize and say, all Christians are like that. Yeah, that's absolutely not the case.
Well, and it's amazing. I went to, this is a few years ago, I was speaking at a church, and they did a lot with people who struggle with addiction. And I talked to one of these ladies who was just lovely. And she said that they saved her life. She said they welcomed her in with open arms, and they just loved her. They didn't care about her past or the fact that she was going through addiction challenges. They just loved her. They just loved her as a human being. And so for her, that changed her total life. She went through a complete transformation, and now she turns around and helps other people who struggles.
I've seen several churches that partner with local, mental health advocacy groups, or with psychiatrists, psychologists, other counselors, social workers, and they have dedicated nights, or even substance abuse counselors. They have dedicated nights every week that they're like, if you have a problem, it's basically like, a big circle of people, and what they're not doing is they're not saying, well, Jesus can love you out of this.
Right.
We're going to use the tools that God gave us, the resources that we know that help these psychiatrists, these behavioral health people, these substance abuse counselors, and we're going to give a safe space for you to be able to come and just get help. Just get help. It's really, I know that a lot of people think that the minute you walk through the doors of a church, you're just globbed onto by all the Christian people who are like, leave him, God. And it's not like that. Of course, I've been to lots of different churches and stuff, and there's a lot of some churches who have a more passionate crowd of people. There was actually one church I went to for the very first time when we lived in a separate place or in a different state. The minute we walked in, we had people inviting us to their cookouts. It was just a very different, but it was friendly. It was warm. My husband and I were both like, whoa, okay, a lot. But we started leaning into that more, and it just felt really good. It felt like a family. It felt like fellowship. It felt safe. So I would not shy away from any of those resources or any of those programs simply because it's in a church. People of faith, we're taught to do outreach, to love people. It's not just, the secular world and the Christian world are oil and water. We really want to help, guide people in their struggles and their journeys, because most of us in this faith-based space have our own testimonies.
Oh yeah.
I'm obviously one of those people.
Yeah,
oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, and it's amazing to me, even on Sunday, because we have at our church, and a lot of churches do this, that they have dedicated testimonials. They have, a new congregation member or just, somebody who's been there for a while come up on stage and tell their testimonies. And some of these people were just lost as I was, if not more. The heavily tattooed biker guy who comes up and is like, I was doing this, this, and this. And now he's, completely a changed person. And it's incredible to me. And that speaks to the capacity for change. And it's not just, changing because of faith. It's just a capacity to change as human beings. We are all, whether you're religious or not, we're all capable of that same change.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that is an assumption a lot of people make, and they don't realize that there's a lot of people who just meet them where they are. I know there was a gentleman in our church too that shared his story, and without going too deep on that, but he just, wow, like, so these people, so they're not judging me, they actually are loving me where I am, and they're just surrounding me with their presence and their positivity. And so and he did a testimony as well, for in our church. Come as you are. Yeah,
absolutely. Come as you are.
Yeah. Well, and so
I want to ask you, what has helped you? Because we did talk about me a lot. So what's helped you in your struggle? I know you have loved ones, but what advice do you have, I guess, from that angle? Because we did talk that angle, or even in your own personal things, if you wanted to, whatever you want to share.
Yeah. So, I mean, personally, for the most part, my adult life, I think because of my faith, I've been much better. There was a time, when I was younger that I'm a little bit different. I always say, and I'm okay with it now. I've been accused of walking by the beat of my own drum, the mold's thrown away, all that kind of stuff. And, like I said, I'm okay with it now. But when you're, younger and you're pushed out or teased or bullied and all that kind of stuff, I honestly just wanted to be an adult so badly. I did not want to go through high school. I just wanted to jump over that, because that was where it was difficult. There was times where, in my yearbook, actually, one of my friends, thank God for her, had written, you can make it. Like, you've got 4 more days. She would do the countdown for me. You can make it. You can make it. Yeah. And not that I would have done anything really severe, but it was really hard for me. Nobody, I don't think, knew that during that time, because I would always put on a smile on my face and fake it really well. So advice on that part of it too. I mean, it's, I think, from loving other people too, reminding them again that it doesn't define them. You believe in them, remind them who they are, before they struggle. Because a lot of times too, people are going through that because of what other people have done. Yeah. I mean, how many times, like, for example, our last episode was dealing with trafficking, and how many times the people who've gone through trafficking or been victims of trafficking, trying to help them to heal and take care of themselves, and all of that, being at the hands of another person is really difficult. So trying to just go through that journey of healing and getting help and trusting people again.
Yeah, that's hard.
So, do you have any other thoughts, parting thoughts on this, as far as what's helped from someone who loves someone who struggles, and vice versa? Any other things you can think of that weren't already mentioned?
It's hard, because I'm that person. I am the person who struggled in like half of my surrounding people's story. So it's hard for me to see it. I mean, I certainly have loved people who have struggled like me. But at that time I was also struggling. So I probably was not the best help. I can assure you I was not the best help at all, for anybody, aside from maybe telling them that I was, a day behind them and that it gets better or whatever it is. But, like I said, the best thing for me when I was there is just knowing that there was a safe person if I really did need it and when I was ready. So
yeah, that is really good. Well, so the resources that you'd mentioned are on our Dose of Unity website.
Yep.
And
/ take action. It's our action page. We're going to post different issues that we talk about and the different resources connected to those. These are national resources. If you know us personally, there's not going to be any local resources, but the national resources are very important. They're very buttoned up, and often they are connected to local chapters, like I had mentioned. So wherever you're at in your area, start there, and you'll get a good feel for what's around you specifically. So.
Well, great. Thank you so much for joining us today. And
like, comment, share, subscribe, follow, do all the things. And then just one last challenge for you, just little walking away homework that I just thought of, something that was helpful to me while I was recovering from all of these things. I like to say one nice thing about myself in the mirror every morning. It's super corny, but it sets the tone for my day. Just one nice thing. Even if I don't believe it myself, I tell my brain to believe it. So
yeah, that's true.
Your hair looks really good this morning, Capriana. It does.
Really nice,
So it's just anything that's just like, wow, I want to start loving myself again. So anyway.
Yes. That is true. So, well, thank you again for joining us.
We'll see you on the next one.
Alrighty.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.